Welcome, everybody, to the fourth episode of the Tiny Nimble podcast. This is a monthly mobile gaming podcast style show with me, Tiny Little Games, and the son of Odin himself, Nimble Thor. This week, we're going to talk about our Gamescom expectations, our thoughts on the wave of shitty mobile game ads, and the everlasting battle between Android and iOS gaming. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember there's also an audio-only version, which you can find on your favorite podcasting apps. And if you're already listening to the audio version, remember you can find the video version on our YouTube channels. Now, as always, we're going to kick off our show with what we like to call our righteous recommendations. Nimble Thor, kick it off.
Listen, guys, this episode is going to be absolutely amazing. And first of all, because we have some, great new mobile games to share with you guys. So my mobile game is called Evil Lands. That's one of the best games I've played this week. So that was the obvious pick as my righteous recommendation for this week. Have you played Evil Lands, by the way, Tiny?
I have played Evil Lands and done a video. And I agree with everything you're about to say about it.
Okay, so listen, guys. It's this semi-open world online 3D RPG with both PvP and PvP areas, and it's a really promising game. It does have a few bugs here and there, at least when I played it, but the developers seem to be actively working on it, and I really like where this game is going. It's got this really awesome fantasy RPG setting with, monsters to kill, quests to complete, and I hope that they just continue adding more content to it and more variety to the gameplay. It's not an MMORPG, by the way, just in case anybody was wondering. It is online, but it's more... Well, I guess imagine that you're just running around in this world, you're killing your monsters, you're doing your quests, but in this world, there's also a ton of other players, and if you want to, you can help each other defeat a boss monster, but you don't have to if you don't want to, and there isn't any focus on party play whatsoever, which, of course, might be a bit of a bummer, I guess, for some people. But yeah, I'm really liking this one. I do also want to say
that because it's like co-op. It's like a co-op, right?
It's more co-op.
Yeah,
and I feel like that's where this game is going probably. The servers, quote unquote, servers you're playing on, also exist of I think around 8 to 10, maybe 12 people, maybe up to 15 in total. So it's not. That's why I said it isn't a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. It's not like you're playing with thousands of players at a time. But it's got some things going for it, and I would definitely recommend anyone checking it out. Also because I just want to support the game so it sees more success so that the developers can continue working on it. Because I feel like it's one of the better attempts at an online 3D RPG on mobile, at least that I've seen here in 2019 so far. But I know you told me to pick one game, by the way, Tiny. But I gotta...
You're going against the rules.
Yeah, I'm going against the rules here. I gotta just give a shout out to one of my favorite games of all times, and it's called Infinitoad, and Infinitoad 2 just released, on Android at least. It's coming to iOS as well. Sorry for those of you on iOS devices, but it should be coming soon. You can already play the first Infinitoad game, that's out both on Android and on iOS, but Infinitoad 2 just takes the recipe from the first game and just improves on it. So it's a tower defense game. It's an endless level-based tower defense game. And I guess that's all I'll say about that because I want to keep you guys hanging, kind of. I want to make sure you guys go check out that game. It's made by a single indie developer, and I feel like it's it's something worth supporting. But even if it were made by a big studio, I would still play it because it's just my favorite tower defense game on mobile. So yeah, there you have it. I'll keep it. I'll stick to 2. Don't worry, I'll stick to 2. So over to you then, Tiny. What's your righteous recommendation of the week?
Righteous recommendation for me is going to be Gigantic X.
Oh, good
so
one.
Gigantic X, it's a top-down action shooter. I thought at first when I first loaded it up, I'm like, oh, it's a twin stick shooter, which it kind of has that feel of a twin stick shooter. However, one button is for movement, the other button is for shoot, but you don't really shoot in the direction. You kind of just hold it and it shoots the monsters that's near to you. But what I really like about it is the graphics are fantastic and there's epic boss battles. And if anybody knows me, I love epic boss battles in my games. I like them to be challenging. I like them to be hard. I like them to have some strategy to them. And this game has all of that. I mean, dodging at the right moment, using the right combos to take them down. And another thing I really like about it is it reminds me of a movie called Starship Troopers. So I don't know who've seen Starship Troopers, but it's like this old school kind of like B-grade type movie that came out, I think in the late 90s or whatnot. And it just has that whole feel to it. Really good game. Now, when I played it, there was some glitches, some graphical glitches and some frame rate issues I was having, but I checked on it recently and I think they cleaned some of it up because it's had its official release now. So they've cleaned some of those glitches up. So it's more of a smoother play experience. And there's one thing that I like about it. It's just hard. It's just challenging. And it's good to have a good challenging mobile game in your hands because sometimes we get used to those easy ones that like, oh, it plays the game for you. Or, it keeps it's not as challenging. This game feels like, oh, you're the player and you're actually controlling what happens. Really good game. That's Gigantic X.
Yeah, there
I
aren't
like
that
the
many of those. There aren't that many of those
Yeah.
really challenging mobile games. Now, I actually played Gigantic X as well. I think it's soft launched in Denmark about 4 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago, if I recall correctly. I liked it as well, by the way, for what it's worth. I really liked it. Thought it was a great game, but it did have quite a few bugs and glitches here and there when I played it. So I'm of course just glad to hear that, as you now mentioned, that it has been smoothened out, and I guess that's why it is globally. Yeah, I guess that's why it's been globally released as well. Do you know if it has co-op? By the way, like, can you and I play together?
It does have a co-op mode, which I didn't dive into too much when I made the video, but I did look into it, and it does have a mode to where like we can team up and take down bosses together. So that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I would love to do
bosses
that
together.
Yeah, that sounds pretty great. So yeah, there you have it. I guess those are the free, because I cheated a bit, the free righteous recommendations of the week to kick off the podcast
it's
here.
It's funny. I didn't realize you snuck that in on the outline when you started talking about it. I was like, oh, wait, yeah, okay, that's cool, whatever.
I had to.
Yeah.
I mean, Infinite Toad 2 is so great. It's so great. Yeah.
All right. So next we're going to go on to some of our new releases. Every week we tend to give out some new releases that are coming out. But this time we're just going to do 2 notable releases. Ones I just feel like I want to talk about a little bit. The first and foremost is Warhammer Combat Cards 40K Edition. It sounds like exactly what it is. It's a card battler game with Warhammer characters.
Yeah.
So those who are familiar with Warhammer characters and like that universe can now play a card battler game with them. I haven't played it yet. I'm not the biggest fan of card battlers, although Teppen, which we talked about last month, was amazing, and it really got me excited for card battlers. So I think I'm going to give it a try to see how it compares. But that's going to be something hard to live up to.
Yeah, I mean, I downloaded it. I downloaded it as well, by the way.
Yeah?
Like the Warhammer combat cards, but I haven't gotten around to play it yet either. No, but yeah.
Have you played Teppen yet?
I haven't. It hasn't released yet. I haven't been able to.
Oh, that's right. You haven't got it yet. That's right. That's the one that I have before you.
Yeah.
Which is very rare.
The only one.
Yep. The only one. Yeah. And then the next game we want to talk about, I think, Nimble, you want to talk about. You're the one who brought this up. I was interested about this one.
I read an article about this game, actually. I guess it got a bit of a PR promotion called Chessplode. Chessplode, like chess and then explode in one word, Chessplode. And I haven't played it yet, but it seems like a really amazing game. It's brand new, and it's kind of mixing chess, but then in a mobile setting, and I guess adding some elements on top of that, some more casual elements on top of that. And basically, I guess it has to do with your chess pieces exploding. So whenever you move your chess pieces around on the board, it has a traditional chessboard setup. But then whenever you move your chess pieces around, some of the other ones will explode, and I guess that's why it's aptly called Chessplode. I like that. I haven't played it yet, but I like when board games and mobile games merge to create these new subgenres of new game genres, really. So yeah, Chessplode. Yeah. There you go. Should be available globally.
I was looking at the screenshots, and I just want to let everybody know it's not an auto chess game.
No, it's not auto chess. No.
Yeah, because people are going to think right away, because it's the auto chess apocalypse is upon us.
We talked about last week.
That they're going to think, it's another one of those. No, it's an actual traditional chess game. So you basically you're playing chess.
That's it.
You're actually moving the chess pieces.
Yeah. So next up, we got to talk a bit about Gamescom. I mean, Gamescom is coming up. Well, it's actually going on right now as we're releasing this episode. We should be in the middle of Gamescom 2019. And for those who don't know, Gamescom is one of the, if not the world's biggest games event. I think it is, Games Fair. I think around 400,000 people are going to attend that this year. So we wanted to talk a bit about if we have any expectations from what's going to be shown at that event. I think from what I read so far, there's not a lot of news about mobile games, sadly. So I guess that's a bit of a bummer to start out with here. There's lots of news about Xbox, about PlayStation, Nintendo. You've got 2K, you've got EA, all these big publishers and hardware developers and mobile game and I guess PC game developers and console developers coming out and announcing stuff. But we just don't know anything about the mobile games to be announced at Gamescom. I'm sure we'll hear something. So hopefully we'll have something to report back on next month. Now, Gamescom, by the way, it's taking place in Germany, in Cologne, in Germany, this week. So I did pick up on a few things though. I picked up on on Google Stadia once again. You know me, I
Of
gotta
course,
I
always
gotta
going
mention.
back to Google Stadia.
Oh man, I
Yeah,
gotta mention Google Stadia at least once in these
yeah. The
episodes. So
spokesperson here,
well,
Nimble Thor, the spokesperson for Google
exactly.
Stadia.
Well, listen, I'm trying to land a job, you know. Well, no, not really,
Yeah.
but so the second episode of what Google has called Stadia Connect is gonna launch or release on YouTube, I think, at Gamescom. So hopefully we'll have some more news on Google Stadia by then. I've heard, it has been rumored, I think, that they're gonna announce some games for once. They haven't really announced any games for Stadia so far as I know, or at least only very few. But apparently there are 15 game publishers that are gonna be releasing some information about some games that are gonna be available on Google Stadia. So I think finally we'll, in a week from now, or maybe when you're listening to this, you'll be able to find some of the first games that are to be released on Stadia. I don't know, I find that kind of interesting.
Well, they're gearing. Well, it's of course because they're gearing up for the release. I mean, Stadia is coming up fast. Before we know it, it's going to be in our hands, or it's going to be in the cloud and then in our hands.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm interested to see what else they have to say, what more announcements they have to say. When it comes to Gamescom, of course, all the big developers are going to be there, and they're all going to talk about their big high-end AAA games. And my expectation or my thought is that they're probably going to, some of these developers are just going to talk about some mobile games that they're going to be bringing over. Because that seems to be the big thing nowadays, is bringing, AAA titles to mobile in a free-to-play format. Like we've talked about before, all the different types of ports, or even like, new type of games that they're going to do. So I feel like that's probably going to what some of these developers are going to be focusing on. I definitely think Ubisoft is they're definitely taking mobile gaming more seriously. They want to create good, competent mobile games. They've had slight success in some areas and maybe not some in the others. So I do feel like Ubisoft is probably going to be saying something about what they're going to be bringing to the table.
Ooh,
I don't think does Blizzard, is Blizzard going to be at Gamescom? I don't think so, because they do their whole BlizzCon. Are they?
They have an entire building just for them. Like just for Blizzard and stuff. It's huge. Like I was at Gamescom last year and the year before that as well. And it's freaking huge. Like they're the one company with the biggest area at Gamescom. Yeah.
I'm just curious if they're going to talk about some Diablo Immortal.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
They've been really quiet about Diablo Immortal, so I'm curious.
I forgot about that game. I forgot about it again. Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to forget about that game.
Well, yeah, maybe. I'm not that person, though. I actually want to play it. I want to give it a fair shot.
Yeah,
I'll be sure to, I'll be sure to talk trash about it if it's horrible. But, I'm looking forward to playing it still. I'm curious. Yeah. But actually, talking about bringing existing titles to mobile, we also got Pokemon Masters, and I don't know if we'll hear anything from, maybe from Nintendo. I don't know if the Pokemon company themselves is going to be at at Gamescom, but maybe we'll hear some news about Pokemon Masters. I read that game now has 5 million pre-registrations across Android and iOS.
Wow.
Which is, even for Pokemon, yeah, I think that's that's a pretty big number. 5 million pre-registrations. So that's without the game even launching yet. We don't know a lot about it yet, though. It's an RPG. I think that's all we know, kinda. Well, a bit more. You guys can go watch some of the videos.
A team battler
RPG.
Yeah.
But I guess the interesting part of that is that it will be the first true Pokemon RPG on mobile, so it might set the sort of set the mood for what Nintendo and the Pokemon company might want to do on mobile with the Pokemon franchise in the future. So we'll see. It's set to launch August 29th, by the way, so just after Gamescom. So we don't have to wait much longer. I guess the vast majority of people listening to this. Date? Yeah, I feel like we do have a launch date, don't we? I think I read that somewhere that August 29th.
Rare when it comes to mobile gaming, yeah.
Maybe it's on iOS that it says, on the App Store. I think it says August 29th. But with that said, though, we have seen in the past, publishers pushing that date back, even on mobile. Yeah. So they say they're going to launch August 29th, and then, it's going to take a couple of weeks more than that, or a month more than that sometimes.
Or a month, who knows? Yeah.
But it should be coming pretty soon, though. So quite excited about that. But that's all for Gamescom, though. I don't have any other, we don't have any other news about Gamescom. So I guess next month, in the next episode, we're going to look back and we're going to talk about what did actually then happen at Gamescom 2019.
And see if our predictions are correct.
Yes. We didn't really predict a whole lot.
That's true, yeah.
Okay, here's a prediction. Well, you predicted that we're going to see something from Ubisoft, right?
I
Um,
predict. Okay, yeah. Let's do this. Let's do predictions. So I have two predictions. Something from Ubisoft, the new mobile game related, and then I'm predicting that we're going to see hopefully Diablo Immortal. Bam. Those are my
okay,
two.
I'm gonna predict that it's not gonna be very specific because I'll have to come up with it here on the spot. But I think we're gonna hear something from Microsoft. I feel like Microsoft
Hmm.
have to make a move
Ah,
into mobile eventually, and they've been pretty quiet, haven't they, for some time? I don't know if they're gonna bring some of their franchises to mobile. I think they might want to do that, but just something related to mobile, maybe even launching a mobile streaming service. That's a bit of a bold guess, or prediction, but because we haven't heard anything about that, no leak rumors about that as far as I know. But I'm,
no,
what the
that
heck,
sounds
just
like a
gonna go
good
for it.
prediction, though.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think that.
Microsoft is the one to look for. Yeah,
Yep.
yep,
Yep. Because Microsoft is really big lately about expanding their
yeah,
library and
exactly.
their consumer base when it comes to like what is it, Game Pass on PC. They're also I've heard rumblings about wanting to do streaming stuff to mobile, but like you said, yeah, that's a good prediction. I
Yeah,
think that they'd make some sort of an announcement.
yeah, yeah. Let's see.
All right. So moving on, we have some okay, so we have some news here about Google that I've been wanting to talk about because I've been hanging on to this information for the past, I think it's probably about a week or two old now at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But Google has now announced their Google Play Pass. So what Google Play Pass is, it's basically the competition to what is it, the Apple Arcade, which they announced a few months back,
Yeah,
and it's a subscription service. You pay $4.99 a month for, and the idea is when you're part of the Google Play Pass, you basically have no in-app purchases on your free-to-play games with no ads, and most of the in-app purchases, or if not all of the in-app purchases, are going to be unlocked in those
yeah.
games.
I think all
So
of
if
them
you're
are
a
gonna be
big fan,
unlocked. Yeah, I think all of
oh,
them are
that's
gonna be
even better.
unlocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're a big fan of like a certain free to play game and you don't want to spend money in it, if you have the Play Pass, then that's what it is. And then also you're going to have access to some premium titles. I don't want to say for free because you pay monthly, but games like I think announced was Stardew Valley, let's say, is a game that's $7.99 on the Play Store. But if you have the Play Pass, it's free. Other ones like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, I think they have a few other premium titles on the list as well.
Mm,
And you basically get those games, your subscription service. So think of it as a PlayStation
yeah.
Plus or maybe an Xbox Game Pass, but for mobile devices.
I
Um,
I guess what
I have
confuses
a few
me.
thoughts that I like and I don't like about it,
Okay,
but
okay.
what confuses you?
Yeah, I'll say one thing. So what confuses me is the pricing of these subscription services. I mean, I know it can hardly get any cheaper. I mean, $2 per month probably doesn't even make sense for Google, I mean, to launch a product like that. But $5 a
Mhm.
month, which is at least where it's rumored, to launch at $5 per month. I don't think I even spent $5 per month on mobile games. And so that's what confuses me, right? Like
There you go.
I
Yeah.
could buy a premium game and then I would play some free to play games, and then maybe a few months later I'd buy a new premium game or play a free to play game where I buy an in-app purchase in. But I still don't think I don't think it evens out to $5 per month or averages out to $5 per month. And that might just be
Yeah.
me, and maybe I'm not in the audience for this type of service.
Well, it's funny that you say that too, because I feel like with all these subscription services in general, especially when it comes to gaming, I almost feel like they bank on that. They bank on the fact that you wouldn't even spend that $5 if you weren't a subscriber to it. But now that you are, well, now they're getting $5 a month out of you, let's say. So a good example is I signed up for the Google, or not Google, for the Xbox Game Pass on PC
Hmm.
because I was like, oh, cool, I can play some Xbox games on my PC. And they did an initial, I think, $1 a month for the first few months or something, but now it's like $4.99 a month. Um, I've only played one game on that thing, and I've had it for 2 months
Yeah,
now. So I spent $10, let's say, to play one game. But if I'm not downloading and playing a bunch of games, and let's say I have it for a year, then I've already spent, that money for that whole year when I would have just bought that one game, let's say.
yeah.
So I think some of these subscription services, they're gonna have a difficult time, I think, getting dedicated players on board to take advantage of what it is. Now, if you're playing a bunch of games and getting all these in-app purchases and getting all these premium games, then yeah, the cost is worth it. But if, like you said, if you're someone like you or even someone like me who doesn't spend a lot, I'm probably not. This isn't for me. I'm probably not going to sign up for this
But I
service.
guess on the other hand, though, just to kind of give myself a counter argument to what I just said before, I guess maybe if I had this subscription, maybe if I paid for Google Play Pass, I would play more of these games, right? So
I see.
maybe
Yeah.
I actually would. I think I got your example of the was it Xbox Pass or whatever? Xbox Pass,
Game Pass,
Game
yeah.
Pass, yeah. I don't think that's going to happen to me on mobile. I do think if I had the subscription, I probably would play some of these games. My question is just, will I get a better experience with these games than the existing free-to-play games? And I'm not sure the answer is yes. But maybe that also has to do with the fact that personally, I tend to like multiplayer games. I like online games, and many of those, if not all of them, are free to play already. It's not that I dislike. It's not that I don't dislike premium story-driven or story-based games. I just tend to play them less, right? So that's what holds me back, is that I don't think the games on Google Play Pass will be the types of games that I typically enjoy playing. But
yeah, like if you're not already playing them or haven't bought that premium game, let's say, is this going to make you play it or even keep playing it? It might get you to try it, that's for sure. If a game is $10 on Google Play, a premium game, but you have Game Pass and you're like, oh, I'll try this game, you're probably more likely to try it.
Yeah.
That part is for sure, but are you more likely to keep playing it or, anything along those lines is a different story.
Yeah. I also do feel like it's just sort of a rushed attempt at competing with the Apple Arcade, which I didn't like either, by the way. I wasn't a huge fan of the Apple Arcade either, so it's it's completely fair. I don't like either of them. I don't like Apple's subscription service, and I don't like Google's subscription service already. But I guess
but you like Stadia.
I like Stadia. Yeah, see, that I like. But that's different, though. I mean, that's vastly different. That's like streaming PC and console games onto your mobile device without needing said PC or console in the first place. I mean, that's vastly different. Yeah.
That's a good segue to our next subject. Speaking of streaming games to your mobile device or streaming,
we're so professional.
PC.
We're so professional.
Yeah, I like how you did that. Yeah. I know you probably did it on purpose, right?
Well, yeah. Wink, wink. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So speaking of streaming to like your device, Samsung has just announced that they have a new service coming out called Samsung's PlayGalaxy Link.
Perfect name, by the way.
Perfect. Yeah, great. I don't know how they
easy to remember. It's short.
Yeah.
I mean, the URL, the domain is definitely available.
Yeah, the domain is there for them. Yes. And what it is okay, so this is what it is. It basically allows you to stream games from your PC to your Samsung device. And then there's also like some controllers that have been released. I've seen like different controllers that hook up to your phone and whatnot. So that's really all it is you're streaming games from your PC to your phone so you can play on your phone. The thing about this is we've seen this before. This isn't something that's like brand new that I think Samsung is announced and it's like all this huge big news.
And you know what? For that reason, I'm out. I don't know if you've seen Shark Tank, but like that's reference to Shark Tank. Yeah. For that reason, I'm out. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's been done before.
I agree with you, Nimble. It's something that I'm like, okay, I can tell Samsung wants people to get excited for this, but at the same time, I'm like, this is Steam Link basically, or this is AMD Link. This is a service that we've already had the capability of doing with multiple other devices and all that other stuff. You still have to have a PC that can run the game. You still have to have a good internet connection to get it to your phone. It's just, I'm not sold on it is what it is.
Me neither.
And the fact that it wasn't, I'm reading this article about it that came out, August 14th. And honestly, it didn't make a big splash in the news waves. It's not like it's something that everyone's talking about. I had to really search for the article to be like, oh yeah, there it is. Cause so it's one of those things that I'm like, unfortunately, I don't think it's anything I'm interested in.
No, me neither, by the way. And it seems like they're pushing it as this really big thing, right? And they're trying to make a big deal out of it. The truth probably is that this will be really awesome for a few people. Like, imagine a few people who have, they have their Samsung devices, they have a great gaming PC, and they just want to be able to play some of these games, when they're on the go, or even when they're sitting in their couch and they're not at their PC, they just want to be able to play these games on their Samsung smartphone. And for those people, of course it makes sense, and they have a good internet connection already. But I feel like it's a pretty narrow group of people that they're targeting here, and they're trying to make a big splash out of that. But I guess the news media didn't really pick up on it either, as you said. It did not make the splash that Samsung was hoping for. But
definitely. I can agree to that. Because like I said, even I was just like, meh, when I heard about it.
For that reason, I'm out.
Yep. Shark Tank, love it.
Yep.
All right. Next we're going to talk about something that I just want to throw in here because I just think it's cool, fun little, I guess, hacker news or something like that.
Oh yeah, get those hacker goggles on.
Get those hacker goggles on, guys. We're hacking foos. So what is it? Oh yeah, I lost track. Oh yeah, so Nintendo Switch can now run Android. Isn't that awesome, everybody? So it looks like a person
Yay.
figured out how to run Android on a Nintendo Switch. This is a Nintendo Switch that doesn't have like all the latest patches or whatnot. It has to be like, your bare bones Nintendo Switch out of the box, or maybe revert it back to, a different version or software update. But yes, they can run Android on there with all the Android games and all the other stuff. I'm kind of mixed on it. A part of me is like, that is the most coolest thing ever, because think about downloading emulators on your phone when you download on Android. Now you can have it on the Switch with the controller and all that stuff. But then a part of me is kind of like, well, if you already have your phone and it does all that,
a part of me,
why do you need it on a Switch?
A wise old man, a wise old Blizzard employee once said, "Do you not have phones?" And I think
Yes.
that quote of this wisdom really comes comes into play.
Do you guys not have phones?
Do you guys not have phones? Right.
Yeah.
It's cool. I get it. It's nice that it's possible, and I guess for people who have a Nintendo Switch and they don't mind ruining the warranty, by the way, because this will definitely not go down with Nintendo. Like, Nintendo is not gonna like this, so it will definitely ruin your warranty. But if you don't mind, I guess it's kind of cool.
Yeah. But so I ran Android on a bunch of different devices when I was in my little phase of like, ooh, I want to be a hacker. I put it on a Raspberry Pi, which is basically that little tiny mini computer, and I loaded up Android on it, so it was running like Android stuff on my PC monitor or whatnot, which is really cool. But it ran like crap.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as how it runs. Like, does it run smooth? Is it like the best experience? Which a part of me wants to say probably not.
From what I've heard, it actually does run pretty well, and I heard that it's the best way of emulating other systems on the Switch, like basically running Android,
that makes
and
sense.
then from within Android, then running whichever emulator thing you want to emulate.
PlayStation, Super Nintendo emulator. Yeah. See, and that's
like
I said earlier, I said that's the reason why I think it's attractive, is the fact that, okay, I can emulate, my Nintendo 64 games, and I have a dedicated controller for it and all that cool stuff. So I see some merits in it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, I guess. I just don't have a Switch. Maybe I'm salty about that. a bit salty.
I don't either, so yeah.
Anyway, let's move on then. We don't want to talk more about that Switch stuff. I mean, people who have Switches, right?
Yeah,
those types of people.
We're mobile gamers here.
Exactly. So we're going to move on to what mobile gamers like the most, I guess. Shitty mobile game ads. Ta-da, everyone.
Wait, real quick, Nimble, can you say it one more time? I rarely hear your cuss. Okay. Just say it one more time.
Just one more time for the YouTube demonetization algorithm. Shitty mobile game ads. Shitty mobile game advertisements. There you go, guys. So
we've been demonetized.
Oh no. Well, listen, I don't care. That's fine. But shitty mobile game ads. It's this. First of all, by the way, there's an entire subreddit called Shitty Mobile Game Ads now, and it's just hilarious. If you're running out of content on Reddit, because that happens a lot, of course, we all spend way too much time on Reddit. So if that happens, go to r/Shitty Mobile Game Ads and just have a laugh. Basically, the entire point of that subreddit is to highlight, well, kind of as the name implies, mobile game advertisements that are just shitty. And I think we've all seen them. Just to kind of give everyone a primer here, if you've seen the advertisements for Hustle Castle, then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, they are the worst. Maybe Tales of the Wind as well. There are many examples of mobile games with just horrible advertisements. And so I guess my first question is, why do these exist? Or just why, I guess. Just why?
Yeah, like, what is the point of this? Like, what is going on? I see them and I'm like, what the heck? I'm not going to play this game. Or the crazy thing is, because we play so many mobile games, we see them and we've played the game and I'm like, this is not even like the game. Like Hustle Castle, when it's like this stuff that's like overly sexualized, and then you play the game and you're like, none of this is in the game.
Yet nothing, literally zero of it is in the game. But I spent some time thinking about this, and I feel like you can kind of divide these horrible mobile game advertisements into two categories. We've got the ones that you actually brought up, the ones with real actors and just truly horrific acting. And then the other category, what, sorry?
I just said it's the worst.
Yeah, they're the worst. Yeah, and then the other category of just video and many times also just text advertisements, actually, with oftentimes horrible grammar. And as you just said before, oftentimes very overly sexualized themes for no reason whatsoever. It has nothing to do with what you actually do in game, and they just make no sense, right? Many of them just make no sense at all. Like what you see on the advertisement is not even what's not even in the game, but also just on its own, just looking at that video or that image, you just don't understand what's going on here. Nothing makes sense in these advertisements. So, but I guess they work, right?
I guess I mean the point is, I guess, to get people to be like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Let me see what it's like, and then go and download the game. The problem is the game isn't like that, so you're downloading it for no reason. And then I guess the worst offenders, I think, though, are the ones when it's like the people they're in the office, and then like the guy's sitting there, and the girl comes up, and she's all, "Can I play with you?" And he's all, "Okay." And then they play the game together, and she's like, "This is so cool." And I'm just like, you're not convincing anybody.
No.
I'm not convinced. I don't sit in an office space and somebody walks up to me and says, "Can I play with you too?" It's like, what? Like,
This
don't you
is
guys
so
know each other? You
cool.
work together. Yeah, you guys work together. Like, what the heck? It's the weirdest thing. And it, if anything, it makes me not want to play the game.
Yeah, but I guess it works for some people. Maybe it's a younger audience thing. I don't know. Maybe kids are more appealed by these advertisements, and
It could be
because it has
the
to
thirsty
work.
boys.
It has to work. Like it just has to work.
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't they wouldn't keep making these ads if it didn't work.
We're not just talking about Hustle Castle here or Tales of the Wind. There are so many of these, and I'm pretty confident all of you guys listening here or watching this video know what we're talking about. And if you're not, then if you don't know about it, then probably use a very good ad blogger. Which congratulations to you.
Check out the subreddit. Check out the subreddit and then see for yourself.
Yeah. It's
a good laugh.
It is a good laugh, but they do also annoy me. But maybe I don't know why I'm annoyed by them. Maybe I shouldn't be, but oftentimes they just I guess what annoys me is that some people get tricked by this, right? I feel like some people are gonna they're gonna be tricked by this. They're gonna download the game and maybe they're gonna get addicted by that game, which I guess maybe that's fine. I don't know. I don't really know what to feel about this. It's on one hand I'm like, what's the worst that can happen, right? It's not like these advertisements are ads for viruses or something like that. It is a game that you're downloading most of the time, at least. Yeah, the ones I'm talking about are real games, real advertisements for real games. But the games are just, well, I guess the games are okay, actually. I do actually like Tales of the Wind to some extent. It's sort of a weird auto MMORPG, but it's done in a nice way, I feel like. And I quite like the game, but I quite like dislike the advertisements.
Well, it's funny because it brings me back to like, this was about a few years ago, which you don't see this anymore. You would be on Facebook, right? And then you would see an ad for a game and it would be like this high graphical fidelity game. You're just like, whoa, that game looks so cool. And then that wasn't the game at all. Or they would be like showing a totally different game, mobile game, and then you download it and it's a completely different game. And usually they're like base building games or something like that. Yeah. You don't see that as often, but oh my goodness, that used to really grind my gears.
But I guess
those games like, what is this?
I saw those as well, but I guess it doesn't work anymore. I guess you have to be more extreme. You have to make less sense so it grabs people's attention. You have to grab people's attention, and then you lure them in, and they download the game, as you mentioned already. They download the game just to check out what's going on here. But the part I don't understand is, not only do they have to download the game, but in order for it to make sense for the developer, those people then also have to proceed to actually continue playing the game and spending money in the game. And I know some people are then probably going to think, well, isn't it enough if they just download it, right? Because then you have a higher download number, your game is going to rank higher on Google Play and the App Store. But that's actually not how it works. The algorithm, at least on Google Play, takes into account many different factors, not just downloads. It also takes into account how much time is spent in the game, how often do people open the game, and and many more factors like that when it has to determine which game to show at the top. And that's going back to the advertisements, that's what I don't understand, right? Because I would assume that the people who then do get tricked and do download the game, that they then uninstall the game immediately after they find out that they're tricked or have been tricked. But
that this isn't in the game.
Exactly, but I guess that's not the case. Otherwise, they wouldn't continue running those advertisements. But listen, this wasn't meant to be a rant, though. This was just like
it turned into it, kind of.
It turned into a bit of a rant. But these advertisements are really funny. You guys should go check out shitty mobile game advertisements. And we were actually talking before the show about maybe potentially doing a video, sort of a reaction video, just looking at some of these advertisements, you and I, on a video as sort of a collaboration. I feel like that would be fun to do. So
yeah, I think that'd be fun. And I think you viewers and listeners here would probably be interested in seeing that one as well, because then you can actually see what we're talking about.
Exactly. And you could submit, by the way, submit your worst mobile game ads if you know of anyone. Like, just let us know in the comment section, or any game we should find an advertisement for, because it's just so horrible. because they are kind of horrible. So yeah, let's do that next. Maybe next month we can do a follow up on that, or maybe we're gonna do a separate video. But I want to get into the last big topic, which is the really big one. I think it's Android versus iOS, because we on the first episode, I think we were recommended to talk a bit about why developers tend to prioritize iOS over Android, or do they even do that? Those are some of the questions. So we just want to dive into that. And just to preface this, we are both Android users, by the way, but I have nothing against iOS. I understand why some people prefer iOS. iOS devices are great as well, but I just tend to prefer, subjective opinion, I just prefer Android, the Android ecosystem overall. But both devices, it's all mobile gaming, so both devices are great at the end of the day. Just wanted to preface with that. But then to get into the actual discussion as a starting point, I've actually started seeing many games release on Android first, just to start in the complete other camp, right? I don't know if it's true anymore that developers prioritize iOS over Android. Don't know if you've seen the same.
Back in the day, I always say back in the day, but a while ago, back in the day when I was a youngin', I don't know, let's say 5 years ago, it seemed very relevant, or it seemed like it was always iOS, right? Developers, it seemed like they were like pushing iOS first, this and that. And whether that can be, depending on money or however it might be, I feel like the market nowadays just isn't like that. Like you said, like, I feel like it's either equal or it's Android first. And you brought up something good about it, something about how Android is good for testing the community or for play testing.
I think even from way back when, going back 5 years or even further on mobile, as you mentioned, even going back 10 years to the very early days of smartphone gaming, at least. I feel like the reason people launched on iOS first was that people who own iPhones tend to have more residual income, higher residual income. So basically they have more money to spend on mobile games. So it makes it obvious that if you have to pick one over the other, you're probably going to pick iOS first, because that's where you're going to make most of your money. But then I think what developers realized is that if they launched on Android first, they might not make as much money, but they could test on a market that was less important, right? And I'm probably going to, remember Android fans out there, I have an Android phone as well, but it is less important from a business sense, Android, that is, if you make more money on iOS. So I guess developers figured out, hey, we can launch an Android first. We can get some numbers, gather some data. How often do people open the game? Do they even like playing our game, right? And what can we change to make them come back to the game over and over again? Because that's obviously what it takes to monetize a mobile game properly. You got to have people coming back to your game. So I think that's why we see this, right? See, for example, Frostborn, which is a new survival game, just as one example here, a new survival game by the developers of the very popular Last Day on Earth survival game on mobile. That one, Frostborn, released on Android first. I don't think it has even come to iOS yet, but it's already out on Android in a few countries, and it's being tested. And I think the reason is to gather data before the iOS launch, so that when you then launch on iOS, your important market, that your game is set up and very nicely, quote unquote, nicely monetized from a development business standpoint.
Well, you see that more often too. Like when you're in the Android store, I go into the iOS store every so often, especially because I'm playing games that are on both. But in the Android marketplace, you do see a lot of those, early releases or early access titles.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely see a lot. I feel like you see a lot more of those nowadays. And, but back to the whole Android versus iOS, thing seems to be going on. It's the same as like a console war, PlayStation versus Xbox and all this stuff. I think it started to rise a little bit back when Infinity Blade came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an exclusive iOS game. And then so when that came out, that's when the whole idea of like, okay, there's exclusive games on each platform. And whenever you have exclusives, of course you're going to have people who are saying like, oh, our exclusives are better than your exclusives and this and that. But when you fast forward to today, you don't see as much of that anymore. You don't see, oh, this is exclusively iOS, this is exclusively Android.
I think that also has to do with developer tools getting better. With the Unity, it's relatively easy to launch in both Android and iOS. There's lots of Android devices that you have to. So that's another thing, right? There's lots of different Android devices and screen sizes that you had to take into account. But it is still becoming more and more easy to launch on both platforms and support many, many different device and screen sizes at once, right? So it's becoming easier from the development standpoint. And I think also the fact, going back to the iOS being more important than Android, I feel like that maybe had its roots in premium games, because on Android, that was another point that was brought up years back, was that on Android, people could pirate their games, right? So that's a horrible platform to launch on. And obviously, with iOS being more of a closed system, it's not impossible, but it's more difficult on iOS than it is on Android.
Yeah, you have to jailbreak the phone or hack the phone.
Exactly.
Hackers! In order to do so.
Yeah.
To the hackers.
Whereas on Android,
it's the hacker episode.
Yeah, exactly. But whereas on Android, you can just install the APK. Like, just download the APK. That's the installation file.
Sideload it.
Exactly, you just sideload it, and you don't have to do anything other than that. So, but I feel like that's of course less relevant now, where you don't have that many premium games anymore, right? So you have more free-to-play games. Well, the vast majority of games these days are free-to-play, and that means that whole argument for why it's important to launch on iOS first is not even relevant anymore.
But you know what? It's funny because I feel like this whole versus thing was brought up even again recently. If we talk about Fortnite was released on iOS first. And then there was this whole thing of where if Fortnite would even come out on Android, because I guess Epic Games was like, oh, because of the side loading and this and that. And then they decided to not go with Google Play because they can do side loading on Android and just do their own launcher.
Yeah.
So it gave Epic, I guess, the freedom to do so. They keep more money because they don't have to pay Google Play for the in-app purchases and all that stuff. So even though they released on iOS first, I feel like they're going to make more money for those who spend money on it on Android, if you think about it. So it's kind of like, it's weird how there is that little debacle about that.
Yeah, because they don't have to pay the 30% to Google and Apple. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm just kind of like, that's interesting too. And are we going to see more developers be like, well, shoot, I'm just going to go to Android and have people sideload the app, which is scary for the Google Play Store if you think about it,
definitely.
because then you have like, oh no, people aren't going to be downloading it. And who knows, this might be reason why we're seeing a pass subscription or whatever for Google Play. Maybe they're catching wind of that and they're just like, oh, if we have them pay the subscription, we're guaranteed to get funds and whatnot. So I mean, kind of leads back to that too. But I am interested to see what developers do going forward with Android system. But like you said, over the years, it's leveled out. I just feel like there's more of an even playing field, and that perception that, oh, iOS is favored or even that Android is favored, I feel like is diminishing over time. You just don't see it as often.
No, I don't see it as much anymore. And that's where I want to get to as well, which is why I didn't like when Apple decided to have exclusives on their subscription service, the Apple Arcade. And I don't hope that Google is going to do that on the Google Play Pass either, because exclusives is what, it moves us in the other direction. It moves us towards splitting the audience, right? Splitting groups of mobile gamers into the iOS gamers and the Android gamers, right? Instead of just us all being one big happy family of mobile gamers.
One big happy family of mobile gamers. But you're trying to say that gamers should be one big happy family. I think those days are gone. No.
Well, yeah, I guess.
But I love the dream. I love the dream of us just coming together. And see, that's the thing. What I like about mobile gaming too, though, even if you're on Android or if you're on iOS, we're playing the same game and we're getting basically the same experience, and we can enjoy it together. So we don't have that in the console marketplace all the time because, like you said, they're big on exclusives. Yeah. Xbox is big on theirs. PlayStation is big on theirs. You get people saying, oh, ours is better, this and that. And then you get people who are missing out. I mean, not everybody can have an Xbox and a PlayStation. It's not feasible financially for everybody to have both systems and to buy both of those.
Exactly.
So you end up picking one that you favor, or you pick one and then you regret you don't have the other one because you can't play Horizon Zero Dawn or something.
It's worse for the consumer, and it's also worse for the hardware manufacturers, for Microsoft and for Sony. But the only reason they keep doing exclusives, at least the way I see it, is that they have to, because if none of them dares being the first to stop, if Sony is the first to stop, then Microsoft will have the upper hand with their Xbox exclusives. And if Xbox stops, then, Sony will have the upper hand for some time. If both of them stop, though, it would be just fine. Of course, they would have a difficult time arguing why people should come to their platform, and then they would actually have to compete on the platform, right? Which is what I feel like us consumers want to see. They would have to compete on having the best platform, having the best services for the gamers, having the cheapest services maybe also, right? As long as that, as long as it's cheap and good at the same time. But of course, they don't want to get to that point. They just want to have their exclusive games because it's easier for them, and because they don't trust the other part to not do exclusives. And that's why we're in that situation on consoles. And actually one of the big reasons why I don't even want to engage too much with consoles. I prefer PC and mobile, in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be a big console player back in the day. I used to play PlayStation was my go-to device.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've over the years now that I got into, of course, into mobile gaming, and then I'm on my PC because I have to edit videos. I just find myself playing on PC more than anything. I
Yeah.
mean, if there's like a super duper exclusive I'm looking forward to, maybe. I mean, I'm a Spider-Man fan, so I played Spider-Man on PlayStation, but at the same time, it's mainly PC. The further I get, the older I get, because I'm an old man now, apparently. It's PC gamer. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, the whole exclusivity thing is a whole subject and matter in itself, and how it affects, the consumer and all that stuff.
And
I'm
sure it's something we're gonna get. Oh, sorry for cutting you off, but I'm sure that's something we're gonna get back to in the future. By the way, in future episodes of this podcast as well, just with Google Stadia, but not just Stadia, but just with all of these streaming services starting to blur the lines between hardware, basically. And yeah, I guess maybe
not needing that hardware,
needing that hardware, right? And maybe in the future we'll even stream our mobile games. I don't know, but like maybe we will, instead of having them actually installed on our phones. It seems a bit far-fetched at this point, but I wouldn't be too surprised, honestly, if that's what's going to end up happening at some point in the future, especially the higher quality mobile games. But then again, what are high quality mobile games even anymore, right? Because if you can start streaming in PC level games, and those, of course, from the consumer standpoint, those will be experienced as mobile games, right? Because you play them on your smartphone. It's just that they're streamed
you can play it on your phone.
So I guess, those lines are just going to get blurred, I guess. That's my point. Yeah.
And we're getting closer and closer, like you said, to Stadia, and getting closer and closer to these streaming services.
I'm so excited.
And so by the end of it all, I'm very excited and curious to see how everything works out. But if you guys haven't noticed, we're probably going to be doing a big giant Stadia podcast once the Stadia releases. It's going to be, the whole thing is going to be Google Stadia.
How about we just rename this podcast to Stadia, the podcast?
Yeah, Stadia, the podcast.
Let's do it.
Stay for the Stadia podcast, everybody.
If this video gets more than 1,000 likes, we're gonna. No, we're not gonna do that.
1 bajillion likes for this video.
Okay, yeah, so that's it. Then we're gonna change the title of this podcast.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's basically what we have in store for you guys today. We talked a lot about all the good things. Please, if you guys have any comments that you want to talk about the podcast, or you have any, questions, or if you have any like ideas of what you want us to talk about, definitely leave a comment below. You can subscribe to my channel, Tiny Little Games. You can subscribe to Nimble Thor's channel, which is Nimble Thor. We both do gaming related or Android gaming related content, and we love doing it. And you'll see us here every month doing a podcast. With that said, we'll see you in September.
See you guys.